The Varaxian hunters ruled the stars for thousands of years. No creature in the known galaxy could match their skill, their technology, or their fierce determination. They were tall beings with scales that shimmered like polished metal under the light of alien suns. Their eyes glowed amber in darkness, and their clawed hands could tear through the toughest materials. The Varaxians lived for one purpose alone: the hunt. Commander Vexthar stood on the viewing deck of his ship, the Talon's Shadow. His dark scales reflected the light of distant stars as he gazed at the trophy wall before him. Skulls, claws, and other remains from hundreds of different species lined the wall from floor to ceiling. Each trophy told the story of a successful hunt across many different worlds. Another easy victory, Vexthar said with a bored sigh. He ran his clawed finger along the fresh trophy, the horn of a giant beast from a distant moon. The creature had fought well, but like all prey, it had fallen to his hunters. His second-in-command, Krazoth, nodded in agreement. Yes, Commander. The beasts of Tau Ceti were no match for our skills. Vexthar turned away from the trophy wall. I grow tired of prey that offers no real challenge, Krazoth. Where is the honor in killing creatures that cannot truly test our abilities? The ship hummed softly around them as the crew prepared for the victory feast. All 20 hunters aboard the Talon's Shadow had earned their share of trophies on this latest hunt. They would celebrate tonight, but Vexthar could not shake the empty feeling inside him. The thrill of the hunt was fading with each easy victory. Later that night, as the feast reached its peak, Vexthar noticed an old Varaxian watching him from across the room. The elder's scales had faded to a dull gray color, showing his great age. Yet his eyes still burned with the fire of countless hunts. Vexthar recognized him as Yexmar, one of the most famous hunters from a time before Vexthar was born. The commander approached the old hunter with respect. Elder Yexmar, you honor us with your presence tonight. What brings you to our modest celebration? Yexmar took a slow sip from his drinking cup before answering. I hear you seek worthy prey, Commander Vexthar. I hear you grow restless with easy victories. Vexthar was surprised. News travels fast among our kind. When the greatest hunter of 7 generations becomes bored, people notice, the old Varaxian said. He motioned for Vexthar to sit beside him. Perhaps I have information that might interest you. Vexthar sat down, his curiosity sparked. I'm listening, Elder. Yexmar leaned close, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Have you heard of a species called humans? I have not, Vexthar admitted. From which system do they come? They come from a small blue world called Earth. In the system they call Sol, Yexmar explained. The Concilium has classified them as danger category Omega. Vexthar's eyes widened in surprise. In all his years as a hunter, he had never heard of any species receiving such a high danger rating. Most dangerous prey were rated Alpha or Beta. Even the terrible fire beasts of Proxima Centauri were only rated Gamma. Omega? That cannot be right, Vexthar said. What makes these creatures so dangerous? Do they have superior weapons? Poison? Natural armor? The old hunter shook his head. Slowly. None of those things. They appear physically weak. They have no claws, no natural armor, no venom. Their bodies break easily. Then why are they rated Omega? Vexthar asked, confused by the contradiction. Yexmar's eyes seemed to look beyond the room, as if seeing something from long ago. They are different from any prey we have ever hunted. They don't just survive, they adapt. They turn weakness into strength. Their greatest weapon is not their technology, but their minds. Vexthar could not hide his disbelief. All prey thinks before it dies, Elder. Thinking does not save them from our hunters. Not like these beings, Yexmar warned. His clawed hand gripped Vexthar's arm with surprising strength. The last 3 hunting parties that went after humans never returned. This statement caught Vexthar's full attention. The loss of a hunting party was rare. The loss of 3 was unheard of. Is this true? Why have I not heard of these losses? Vexthar demanded. The High Hunt Council keeps it quiet. They fear the effect on morale if word spreads that there is prey we cannot conquer, Yexmar explained. But I was on the council when the decision was made to classify humans as forbidden prey. I know the truth. Vexthar felt a strange sensation growing inside him. It took him a moment to recognize it. Excitement. Real, genuine excitement. After years of easy hunts, the idea of truly dangerous prey made his hunter's blood run hot. Tell me more about these humans, Vexthar said. Over the next hour, Yexmar shared what little was known about the human species. They were spread across multiple worlds now, though their home planet remained their stronghold. They were highly social creatures that formed complex bonds. They used tools and technology to overcome their physical limitations, and most strangely, they seemed to become more dangerous when cornered or threatened. Most prey species become less effective when frightened, Yexmar said. Humans become more effective. Fear does not paralyze them, it sharpens them. By the time the old hunter finished speaking, Vexthar had made his decision. This was exactly the challenge he had been seeking. The fact that humans were classified as forbidden prey only made the potential hunt more appealing. Thank you for this information, Elder Yexmar, Vexthar said, rising to his feet. You have given me much to think about. The old hunter looked up at him with knowing eyes. You will hunt them, won't you? Despite the council's warning. Vexthar did not deny it. The greatest hunters must seek the greatest prey. It is our way. Then remember this, Yexmar said gravely. Humans do not think like prey. They think like hunters, and that makes them the most dangerous quarry in the galaxy. Vexthar returned to his quarters that night, his mind racing with possibilities. He would need his best hunters for this mission. They would need to study everything known about humans before making their move, and they would need to keep their plans secret from the High Hunt Council. As he prepared for sleep, Vexithar looked once more at his trophy wall. He imagined a new addition, something to represent these humans. Whatever they were, however dangerous they might be, they would ultimately join his collection. No prey had ever defeated him, and these humans would be no different. He did not know then how wrong he was. The human colony on Delta Pavonis was home to 5,000 settlers. They had come to this distant planet to build a new life. The colony was only 10 years old, but already the humans had changed the harsh landscape. They had built farms, homes, and research centers. They had planted earth trees that now grew tall in the alien soil. Major Alan Peterson walked through the main street of the settlement, enjoying his morning coffee. He had once been a soldier on Earth, fighting in wars that now seemed far away. He had come to Delta Pavonis looking for peace. His wife, Dr. Olivia Peterson, worked as the chief scientist studying alien plants and animals. They had built a good life here, far from the crowded cities of Earth. Alan waved to Kyle Wright, who was fixing a tractor outside the farm supply store. He smiled at Samantha Butler, who was setting up the communications array for the day. Everything seemed normal and peaceful that morning. No one knew that danger was coming from the stars. In orbit around the planet, hidden by advanced technology, the Varaxian ship Talon's Shadow watched the human settlement. Commander Vexthar studied the images on his viewing screen with great interest. So these are the dangerous humans, he said to Krazoth. They look small and weak. I see no weapons, no defenses. Krazoth clicked his claws together in excitement. Easy prey, Commander. Vexithar was not so sure. Remember what Elder Yexmar said. 3 hunting parties never returned from human encounters. We must be careful. What is your plan, Commander? Asked Krazoth. We will start with a small hunting party, Vexthar decided. 5 of our best hunters will go to the surface. They will test these humans, learn their weaknesses. Then we will plan our main attack. Krazoth bowed his head. I will lead the first hunt myself. On the planet below, the first warning came when the colony's computer system detected something entering the atmosphere. Alan was in the command center when the alarms began to sound. Unknown spacecraft approaching, announced the colony's AI system. Not matching any known human design, They do not respond to our signals. Alan put down his coffee cup and went into action. Sound the alarm. Get all civilians to the safety shelters. Lieutenant Heather Jones, who worked with Alan in colony security, was already checking the defense systems. They're heading for the farm areas, she reported. 5 small craft moving fast. Alan grabbed his communication device. All security teams, this is Major Peterson. Unknown aliens approaching the western farm sector. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Across the colony, people began moving quickly but calmly to underground shelters. The colony had regular drills for emergencies. No one panicked. Alan turned to Heather. What weapons do we have? Standard security blasters, she answered. Some mining explosives in storage. Not much else. Alan thought quickly. Contact Kyle Wright in farm maintenance. Tell him to bring all the heavy farming equipment he can operate. We might need to improvise. Krazoth and 4 elite Varaxian hunters landed their small craft in an empty field near the human farms. They wore advanced armor that could turn invisible, and they carried weapons designed to capture prey alive. Varaxian hunters preferred to take trophies from living specimens. Spread out, Krazoth ordered. Find the strongest humans for Commander Vexthar's collection. The hunters moved silently toward the farm buildings. Their thermal vision could see heat signatures moving inside the structures. They were confused when they saw most of the heat sources moving away, going underground. They know we are here, one hunter said. But how? Our ships are silent, our armor is invisible. It does not matter, Krazoth replied. They cannot hide from us. The Varaxians were surprised when a loud noise suddenly filled the air. A human voice, made louder by speakers, called out, Unknown visitors, this is Major Alan Peterson of Delta Pavonis Colony. We know you are there. We can detect your ships and your movement. State your purpose or leave our planet immediately. Krazoth was shocked. How could the humans see them? No prey had ever detected Varaxian hunters in stealth mode before. Ignore them, he told his hunters. Begin the hunt. The Varaxians moved toward a large building where several humans were gathered. But as they approached, the ground beneath them suddenly exploded. 2 hunters were thrown into the air by the blast. Traps! Krazoth shouted. Be careful! From inside the farm building, Kyle Wright watched through special thermal goggles. He had modified the farm equipment just as Alan had asked. The harvester's cutting blades were now mounted on a mobile platform that he could control remotely. I see them, Kyle said into his communication device. 4 of them moving around the explosion. One seems to be giving orders to the others. Alan's voice came back through the device. Can you use the harvester? Sending it out now, Kyle confirmed. He pressed buttons on his control pad, and the modified farm machine rolled out of the barn. Its sharp blades began spinning. Krazoth saw the strange machine coming toward them. What is this primitive device? He wondered. He fired his capture, weapon at it, but the machine kept coming. When the spinning blades hit one of his hunters, they cut through the alien's armor like it was made of paper. Fall back, Krazoth ordered. He had not expected the humans to fight back with such effectiveness. This was supposed to be a simple scouting mission. In another part of the colony, Samantha Butler had discovered something important. Major Peterson, she called over the communication system. I've analyzed the signals coming from the alien ships. They're using sonic pulses to communicate. I think I can disrupt them. Do it, Alan ordered. Samantha reconfigured the colony's communication array to broadcast on the same frequency as the alien signals. Within minutes, the Varaxian hunters on the ground lost contact with their ship. Vexthar, watching from orbit, grew concerned when he lost contact with Krazoth's team. What is happening? He demanded. His crew worked frantically at their control panels. Unknown interference, Commander. The humans are blocking our signals somehow. Vexthar felt the first stirring of doubt. How could these simple creatures cause so much trouble for his elite hunters? On the ground, Krazoth gathered his remaining hunters. 1 was dead, 2 were injured. This was not going according to plan. We need to retreat, he decided. Return to the ships. But as they moved back toward their landing craft, they found humans waiting for them. Joe Martinez, who had once been a soldier like Alan, had led a team through underground irrigation tunnels to reach the alien ships. They had set explosives around the landing area. When the Varaxians appeared, Joe detonated the explosives. The alien ships erupted in flames. Krazoth and his hunters were now trapped on the human colony with no way to return to their main ship. For the first time in his life, the Varaxian hunter felt fear. From his command post, Alan Peterson watched the explosion. "Good work, Joe," he said into his communication device. "Now pull back to safe positions. Let's see what our visitors do next." In orbit, Vexthar made a difficult decision. "Launch recovery vehicles," he ordered. "Bring back any survivors." His crew was surprised. "Commander, we never retreat from a hunt." "This is not a retreat," Vexthar said firmly. "This is a tactical withdrawal. We underestimated these humans. Now we must learn from our mistakes and plan more carefully." As the recovery ships descended toward the colony, Vexthar stared at the images of the human settlement on his viewing screen. These creatures were not like any prey he had hunted before. They did not run in fear. They fought back with intelligence and courage. "You were right, Elder Yexmar," Vexthar said quietly to himself. "These humans think like hunters." And for the first time in his hunting career, Vexthar wondered if he had finally found prey that could defeat him. Vexthar paced the trophy hall of the Talon's shadow, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The massive room was filled with the preserved remains of countless alien species, but now these trophies seemed to mock him. For the first time, his hunting party had been forced to retreat. 2 hunters dead, 3 injured, including his second-in-command Krazoth. "How did simple farm colonists defeat our elite hunters?" Vexthar asked aloud. The remaining hunters stood silently, none willing to speak first. Finally, Krazoth stepped forward, his arm wrapped in healing bandages. "They were prepared, Commander. They detected us despite our stealth technology. They had traps waiting." Vexthar stopped pacing and looked at his wounded second-in-command. "And their weapons? You reported they had no military equipment." "They didn't," Krazoth admitted. "They used farming machines, mining explosives, communication devices. They turned their tools into weapons." Another hunter spoke up. "They moved together with perfect coordination. Each human seemed to know what the others would do without speaking." Vexthar considered this information carefully. "So they adapt quickly, they communicate effectively, and they use their environment against us." He looked at the star map showing the human colony. "These qualities make them worthy prey. Now we must adapt our hunting methods." On the planet below, the humans were also planning their next moves. Alan Peterson had called an emergency meeting in the colony's underground command center. Around the table sat the colony's leaders and those who had fought against the aliens. "They'll be back," Alan said simply. "And next time they'll be better prepared." Dr. Olivia Peterson nodded in agreement. "I've studied the alien body and equipment we recovered. They're called Varaxians according to our database. They're known throughout this sector of space as hunters who collect trophies from other species." Kyle Wright leaned forward. "So we're not being invaded, we're being hunted like animals." "Exactly," Alan confirmed. "Which means they won't bombard us from orbit or use weapons of mass destruction. Their culture values the hunt itself. They want to capture us, not destroy us completely." Samantha Butler, who had disrupted the aliens' communications during the first attack, spoke next. "I've analyzed more of their technology. Their equipment is partly biological. It's alive in some way. That might give us an advantage." "How?" asked Joe Martinez, the former soldier who had destroyed the alien landing craft. Olivia explained, "If their technology is partially organic, we might be able to create a virus or bacteria that affects it. Something that disrupts their systems without harming our own equipment." The meeting continued as they formed a plan. They would not just defend the colony, they would actively fight back against the hunters. "I need volunteers for a dangerous mission," Alan said toward the end of the meeting. Lieutenant Heather Jones was the first to raise her hand. "What's the mission, sir?" "We need to get onto their ship," Alan explained. We need to understand their weaknesses better and maybe plant Samantha's communication disruptors directly into their systems. Frank Garcia, a quiet man who had worked in colony security for years, spoke up. I was a space engineer before coming to Delta Pavonis. I can help navigate their ship's systems, and I'll need to go to analyze their technology up close, added Nicole Adams, a tech specialist who had been working with Samantha. The next day, a small stealth shuttle launched from the far side of Delta Pavonis, away from the Varaxian ship's sensors. Inside were Frank, Nicole, and 2 security officers. Their mission: attach themselves to the hunting vessel and find a way inside. Their hull is in view, Frank whispered, though there was no need to be quiet in the vacuum of space. Old habits were hard to break. He guided their shuttle slowly toward the massive alien ship, using the planet to hide their approach. It's beautiful in a scary way, Nicole commented as they got closer. The Varaxian vessel looked like a predatory animal, with sections that resembled fins or claws extending from its main body. Frank activated the magnetic grapples, and their shuttle attached to the hull of the Talon's shadow with barely a sound. Now for the hard part, he said, checking his spacesuit one last time before heading toward the airlock. Meanwhile, inside the Varaxian ship, Vexthar had finalized his new hunting plan. We will use sound disruptors to confuse them, he told his hunters. The frequency will disorient human nervous systems, making them unable to coordinate their defenses. And their detection systems? Asked one hunter. We will jam all their frequencies, Vexthar answered. Their machines won't be able to see us this time. We will strike at night, when their natural vision is weakest. What Vexthar didn't know was that Nicole Adams had already attached a small device to the ship's outer hull. The device was scanning the electronic and biological signals that flowed through the vessel's systems. It's amazing, Nicole whispered to Frank as they worked in their spacesuits outside the alien ship. Their hull is partially alive. It has a nervous system running through the metal components. Frank looked concerned. Can they detect us? I don't think so, Nicole replied. The signals are focused inward, not outward, and I think I can introduce a virus into their systems. Back at the colony, Dr. Olivia Peterson had made an important discovery. The Varaxian hunters relied heavily on biological enhancements, improved vision that could see in darkness and through walls, advanced hearing that could detect the slightest sounds, and scent detectors that could track prey across vast distances. If we can overload these systems, Olivia explained to Alan, we could blind them, make them deaf, confuse their sense of smell. Alan nodded. So instead of trying to hide from them, we give them too much information, Olivia finished his thought. Too much light, too much sound, too many smells. The colony prepared for the next attack. Ben Collins, who managed the agricultural systems, created chemical compounds that would mask human scent. Laura Mitchell, a medical technician, developed sonic emitters that would overwhelm Varaxian hearing. Every colonist had a role in the defense plan. 3 days after the first attack, the Varaxians returned. This time, Vexithar led the hunting party himself along with 15 of his best hunters. They landed under cover of darkness, using their new sound disruptors to try to disorient the humans, but the colonists were ready. When the sound disruptors activated, Samantha Butler turned on her counter-frequency broadcasters. The painful sounds that should have paralyzed the humans were neutralized. The sound weapons aren't working, Vexthar growled to his hunters. Switch to stealth approach. Use your enhanced senses to find the strongest humans. The Varaxian hunters activated their biological enhancements and spread out through the colony, but as they moved forward, bright light suddenly flashed all around them, blinding their sensitive eyes. Loud sounds blasted from hidden speakers, overwhelming their enhanced hearing, and strange chemical smells filled the air, confusing their tracking abilities. What is happening? One hunter cried out in pain, covering his eyes and ears. Vexthar himself struggled to make sense of the overwhelming sensory input. Through watering eyes, he saw humans moving confidently through the chaos, wearing protective gear that shielded them from the lights and sounds. Fall back, Vexthar ordered, but his voice was lost in the cacophony of sounds. Many of his hunters couldn't even see or hear him anymore. From his observation post, Alan Peterson watched as the alien hunters stumbled around in confusion. "Now," he ordered into his communication device. Across the battlefield, colonists activated hidden electromagnetic pulse generators. The pulses disrupted the neural connections in the Varaxians' biological technology. Their weapons stopped working. Their armor systems failed. Greg Martinez, who supervised the colony's mining operations, detonated carefully placed explosives that blocked the hunters' retreat paths. Trapped, blind, deaf, and with their weapons failing, the mighty Varaxian hunters were reduced to confused, frightened creatures. For the first time in his life, Vexithar felt true fear. This wasn't a hunt anymore. It was a trap, and his hunters were the prey. "Retreat to the ships," Vexithar shouted at the top of his lungs, hoping some of his hunters would hear him. "Full retreat!" Only 5 of the 16 Varaxians made it back to their landing craft. As they lifted off from the surface, leaving their dead and captured comrades behind, Vexithar stared down at the human colony with a new emotion: respect. "They did not defeat us with superior strength," he said quietly. "They defeated us with superior strategy." In the colony below, Alan watched the alien ships retreat into the night sky. "They'll be back," he said to Olivia, who stood beside him. "And they'll bring more hunters next time." Olivia nodded. "Then we'll need more help." She looked up at the stars. "It's time to call Earth." The news of the attacks on Delta Pavonis reached Earth quickly. In the headquarters of the Space Defense Force, Admiral Catherine Woods read the reports with growing concern. She had served in the military for 30 years and had dealt with alien encounters before, but this was different. These aliens weren't interested in trade or territory. They were hunters who saw humans as trophies. "We need to send help immediately," she told her officers, "not just to protect the colony, but to send a message to any species that thinks humans are easy prey." The Admiral ordered the battlecruiser USS Valiant to prepare for departure. Captain William Drake, a veteran of 3 space conflicts, would lead the mission to Delta Pavonis. "Your orders are clear," Admiral Woods told Captain Drake. "Protect our colonists and show these hunters that humanity is not to be trifled with." The Valiant was Earth's newest and most powerful warship. It carried advanced weapons, a crew of 500, and a squadron of fighter craft. It would take 2 weeks to reach Delta Pavonis at top speed. Meanwhile, in Varaxian space, Vexithar faced the High Hunt Council. The 7 eldest and most respected hunters of their species sat in a semicircle, their ancient faces showing disapproval. "You violated our laws," said Council Elder Zexver, his voice deep and threatening. "Humans are classified as forbidden prey. Now you have lost hunters and revealed our presence to them." Vexithar stood tall despite his shame. "The classification is wrong. These humans are worthy prey. Yes, they defeated 2 hunting parties, but with proper preparation." "Enough!" Zexver slammed his clawed hand on the table. 3 hunting parties never returned before yours. Now you have lost more hunters. These humans should be avoided, not pursued." But Vexithar had become obsessed. The defeat burned inside him like a fire. No prey had ever bested him before, and he could not accept it. "Grant me one final hunt," he pleaded. "With a full hunting fleet, we will prevail." The council members looked at each other. Finally, Elder Zexver spoke. "Your obsession blinds you, Vexithar, but perhaps this is a matter the council must settle once and for all. You will have your fleet, 20 vessels. Either you return with human trophies, or the council will declare humans permanently forbidden to all hunters." Back at Delta Pavonis, the colonists worked day and night to prepare for the next attack. They knew help from Earth was coming, but it might not arrive in time. Dr. Olivia Peterson made an important breakthrough. Using samples from the Varaxian bodies and equipment they had captured, she developed a biological weapon that attacked the organic components of Varaxian technology. "It's like a virus," she explained to Alan and the colony leaders. "But it only affects their biological technology. When deployed, it will cause their weapons and armor to literally wither and die." Alan nodded with appreciation. How long before it's ready for use? 3 days, Olivia answered. We need to grow enough of the culture to be effective. The colonists had also begun to adapt Varaxian technology for their own use. Nicole Adams and Samantha Butler had reverse-engineered the cloaking systems from the captured hunter equipment. We can hide our defensive positions using their own stealth technology, Nicole explained as she demonstrated a small device that made a gun turret invisible to sensors. Frank Garcia had been working on another project. I've modified our communication system to interfere with their biological enhancements, he told Alan. It will cause pain and confusion when they try to use their enhanced senses. 2 weeks after the second attack, the long-range sensors detected multiple ships entering the system. At first, the colonists feared the Varaxians had returned with a larger force, but then a familiar signal came through. This is Captain William Drake of the Earth Defense Force vessel USS Valiant, Delta Pavonis Colony. Do you read me? The colonists cheered at the sound of the human voice. Earth had sent help and not a moment too soon. The same sensors showed another group of ships approaching from a different direction, 20 Varaxian hunting vessels. Captain Drake met with Alan and the colony leaders as soon as he arrived. Admiral Woods sends her regards, he said, and her promise that these hunters will regret targeting humans. Alan quickly brought the captain up to speed on what they had learned about the Varaxians and the defenses they had developed. Impressive work, Captain Drake said. Most colonies would have surrendered or been overrun. You've not only held your ground but prepared an effective counterattack. We had no choice, Alan replied simply. It was adapt or die. The Valiant took up position in orbit above the colony. Its sensors tracked the approaching Varaxian fleet. Captain Drake ordered his fighter squadron to prepare for battle. Lieutenant Commander Susan Wilson report to the bridge. He called over the ship's communication system. Susan Wilson was the leader of the fighter squadron. She had won medals for her innovative attack patterns in previous conflicts. Sir, she said as she arrived on the bridge, my pilots are ready. Good, Drake replied, because we're about to teach these hunters a lesson about picking the wrong prey. In the lead Varaxian vessel, Vexthar was surprised to detect a large human warship in orbit around Delta Pavonis. This was unexpected. The colony should not have had time to call for help. It changes nothing, he told his hunters. One human ship cannot stand against 20 hunting vessels. But then his sensors detected something else. Dozens of small defense platforms in orbit around the planet. These hadn't been there during their previous attacks. What are those? Vexithar asked his crew. Unknown, Commander, one hunter replied. They appear to be using our own cloaking technology. We can barely detect them. Vexthar felt a chill of worry but pushed it aside. Prepare all vessels for attack. We will not be defeated again. The space battle began with a surprise. As the Varaxian fleet approached, the hidden defense platforms suddenly opened fire. The weapons weren't particularly powerful, but they were precisely aimed at the biological components of the Varaxian ships. Systems began to fail across the hunting fleet. How did they know our weak points? Vexithar demanded as warning lights flashed across his command console. Then the human fighters attacked. Led by Susan Wilson, they executed complex attack patterns that the Varaxians couldn't predict. The hunting vessels, designed for pursuit and capture rather than ship-to-ship combat, struggled to defend themselves. Hunting vessels 7 and 12 have gone silent, reported a crew member. 5 more report critical damage. Vexthar couldn't believe what was happening. In a matter of minutes, his mighty hunting fleet was being torn apart by a single human warship and its fighters. Land the remaining hunters, he ordered desperately. We will take trophies from the colony while the ships engage the human vessel. But even this plan failed. As Varaxian landing craft approached the planet, they were met by a biological weapon that Dr. Olivia Peterson had developed. The organic components of their ships began to die, causing critical failures. Most crashed before reaching the surface. Vexthar watched in horror as his grand hunt collapsed around him. The humans hadn't just defended themselves. They had studied the Varaxians, identified their weaknesses, and exploited them perfectly. In a final desperate act, Vexthar ordered his personal guard to accompany him in a direct assault on the colony's command center. If he could claim even one significant trophy, the hunt would not be a total failure. But when they reached the colony, Alan Peterson was waiting with the weapon Frank had developed, a sonic disruptor tuned precisely to Varaxian neural frequencies. The device didn't kill. It paralyzed. "You could have stayed in your part of the galaxy," Alan said as the mighty hunter collapsed at his feet. "We weren't looking for trouble." Vexithar, immobilized but conscious, experienced another new emotion: humiliation. The greatest hunter in 7 generations had become a trophy himself. In orbit, Captain Drake watched as the remaining Varaxian vessels fled the system. "Should we pursue?" asked his first officer. Drake shook his head. "No. Let them go home and tell others what happened when they hunted humans. That message will protect our colonies better than destroying their ships." The battle for Delta Pavinus was over. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy would soon know that humans were not prey to be taken lightly. 6 months after the Battle of Delta Pavonis, Vexthar found himself in a strange place. He was not in a cage or a cell as he had expected. Instead, he lived in a special facility on Earth that resembled his native environment. The humans had created a space with the right temperature, light, and plants similar to those on the Varaxian homeworld. Vexthar was a prisoner, but the humans treated him with respect. They studied him, asked him questions, and learned about his species. In return, he learned about humans. Dr. Richard Clark was in charge of the facility. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes and a curious mind. Each day he would visit Vexthar and talk with him for hours. "Today we're going to try something different," Dr. Clark said as he entered the habitat. Commander Diane Miller walked beside him. She was responsible for security at the facility. She was shorter than Dr. Clark but moved with the confidence of a warrior. "Different how?" Vexthar asked. He had learned to speak the human language well over the past months. "We want to show you more about our species," Dr. Clark explained. "Not as enemies or as prey, but as potential allies." Vexthar made a sound that humans would interpret as a laugh. "Allies? After what happened at Delta Pavonis? Sometimes the fiercest enemies can become the strongest friends," Commander Miller said. "It has happened many times in human history." The humans took Vexthar to a special room filled with images and information about Earth's past. They showed him how humans had evolved from hunter-gatherers to farmers, then to builders of cities, and finally to explorers of space. "Your species values the hunt as the highest achievement," Dr. Clark explained. "We once did too. But we found other ways to use our skills." Vexthar studied the images with interest. "You were hunters like us?" "In a way," Dr. Clark nodded. "Our distant ancestors were persistence hunters. We couldn't run as fast as our prey, but we could run longer. We would chase animals until they collapsed from exhaustion." This surprised Vexthar. He had thought humans were naturally prey, not predators. "Then why did you stop hunting?" "We didn't stop entirely," Commander Miller explained. "Some humans still hunt. But we found that working together to build things was more rewarding than hunting alone." Day after day, the humans shared more of their history and culture with Vexthar. He learned about human art, music, science, and philosophy. Slowly, his view of humans began to change. They were not simple prey. They were complex beings with a rich culture, not so different from Varaxians in some ways. Meanwhile, in Varaxian space, the defeat at Delta Pavonis had caused a crisis. The surviving hunters had returned with tales of humiliation. The High Hunt Council was divided about what to do next. "We should declare war on these humans," argued some council members. "They have shamed our greatest hunters." "No," countered Elder Yexmar, who had first warned Vexthar about humans. "War would lead to our destruction. These humans have proven they can defeat us. We must find another way." After much debate, the council decided to send a delegation to Earth to negotiate for the return of Vexthar and the other captured hunters. Back on Earth, Vexthar was having a breakthrough moment. Dr. Clark had shown him videos of human children playing and learning. "Your young are taught to think for themselves," Vexthar observed. "Our young are taught only to hunt." "Different cultures have different values," Dr. Clark said. "Neither is wrong, just different." "But your way has made you stronger," Vexthar admitted. "We have hunted for so long we stopped learning new things. You humans never stop learning." It was the first time the proud hunter had acknowledged that the human way might have advantages over the Varaxian way. A week later, news arrived that a Varaxian ship was approaching Earth under a flag of truce. The High Hunt Council had sent representatives to negotiate. Earth's leaders decided to allow Vexthar to meet with them. "They expect me to be angry, to demand revenge," Vexthar told Dr. Clark as they prepared for the meeting. "They will be surprised by what I have to say." The meeting took place in a neutral location on Earth's moon. The Varaxian representatives arrived expecting to find their greatest hunter eager to return home. Instead, Vexthar greeted them calmly and spoke of his time among humans. "I have learned more as their prisoner than I did in all my years as a hunter," he told his shocked countrymen. "These humans do not deserve to be hunted. They deserve to be studied, perhaps even to be allies." The Varaxian representatives were confused and angry at first, but Vexthar's status as their greatest hunter meant they had to listen to him. He proposed a new relationship between Varaxians and humans, a system of designated hunting preserves where Varaxian traditions could continue without threatening sentient species, and a cultural exchange program where both species could learn from each other. "The greatest prey," he told them, "is not that which we kill, but that which challenges us to become more than we are." After much negotiation, both sides reached an agreement. The Varaxians would stop hunting humans, and in exchange, humans would share their knowledge and technology. Vexthar would return to his people not as a disgraced hunter, but as an ambassador. 1 year after his capture, Vexthar prepared to leave Earth. He had mixed feelings about returning home. He had learned to respect humans and even to enjoy some aspects of their culture. Dr. Clark and Commander Miller came to say goodbye on his last day. "What will you do when you return?" Dr. Clark asked. "I will teach my people what I have learned here," Vexthar replied. "That the greatest hunt is not for trophies, but for knowledge." Commander Miller smiled. "That sounds very human. Perhaps humans and Varaxians are not so different after all," Vexthar said. As his ship left Earth's orbit, Vexthar looked down at the blue planet. Once he had seen it only as a hunting ground. Now he saw it as the home of a species that had taught him a new way to see the universe. On Earth, Alan and Olivia Peterson were among the first volunteers for a cultural exchange program with the Varaxians. They would travel to the Varaxian homeworld to teach and learn. "They hunted us because they didn't fear us," Alan told Olivia as they prepared for their journey. "Now they respect us for the same reason they should have feared us from the beginning, our ability to adapt and change." In the years that followed, Varaxian hunters still roamed the galaxy, but with a new purpose. Many became guardians of endangered species, using their tracking skills to monitor and protect rather than to kill. Others became explorers and scientists, seeking knowledge instead of trophies. The most famous partnership was between Vexthar and Commander Miller, who together created the Galactic Conservation Initiative. Their team of human and Varaxian experts worked to protect threatened species throughout the galaxy. The words displayed at their headquarters summed up the profound change that had occurred. "In understanding what we hunt, we come to understand ourselves." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans might look weak compared to other species, but their true strength was not in their bodies, but in their minds and their ability to adapt. Any species that made the mistake of hunting humans would learn this lesson the hard way, just as the Varaxians had. And so the species that once knew no fear had found something better than fearlessness. They had found wisdom, and the humans, who had defended themselves so cleverly, had found new allies among the stars.